Now, Dr. Durga will brief us on how to write the results section, the method section of a manuscript. Over to Dr. Durga.
Good evening, everybody. I shall just start sharing my screen. Good evening and welcome to this webinar series. I shall be I do not have any disclosures, and basically you start with the introduction, to describe what did you do, and this is followed later on by the results and discussion section when you present what you did find and what it all meant in context. So methods is the section which represents the planning and design of a study. Just like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, if the methods are not strong, then your manuscript shall gradually lose balance and become tilted because the base is not strong. So it is the methods that requires careful planning right from the beginning before you even initiate the study, so that you can be sure that you're using appropriate methods to reach at the appropriate results. Many reviewers and editors would decide upon accepting or rejecting your manuscript by simply evaluating the methods section irrespective of the results. And if you have flaws in the methods, they can seriously jeopardize the chances of getting your manuscript published. Many a time we feel that if the results are good, if they're positive results, then it may attract reviewers and editors. That's actually not the case. It's the methods, if they're sound, irrespective of the results. If you have a so-called negative study that has good methods and has arrived at a conclusion not being able to show a difference between two groups, despite the good methods, that's more likely to be accepted than something which shows a very so-called positive study, but with dubious methods. So these are the various concepts that should be addressed in the methods. You should be able to describe the PICOT, that is patient population, and you often have an intervention group and a comparator group, particularly in studies describing interventions. What are the outcomes and what is the time period during which you have looked at these outcomes, time period that you have conducted the study. Pre-planning the methods, the first step is important to identify the study question or hypothesis. And then after you have identified your hypothesis, you must plan the methods meticulously so that you can best answer whether your hypothesis is valid or not. So how do you generate a hypothesis? You do thorough literature searches through specialist databases to identify observations or gaps in knowledge based on prior work of investigators, possibly could be your own work. With due attention to ethical aspects, identify gaps in knowledge, and identify questions whose answers are not yet known, that is, whose answers are equivocal, and then generate a hypothesis. This is the most important step while planning a research study. Thereafter, you must plan an appropriate study design, a study of adequate power, and a study with adequate sample size so that you can adequately answer your question based on the findings of your study. It's best to have a written plan for a study before initiating it. And this would generally be the case while writing a study protocol for approval or for funding by different funding agencies. But it's best nevertheless to always write a study plan, even if you're not submitting it somewhere for approval. It's always best to think of different ways to test your hypothesis rather than just a single way. For example, you may have an hypothesis that cardiovascular risk is increased in patients with rheumatoid arthritis. You could test this hypothesis by different ways. You could look at clinical events on a follow-up study. You could look at subclinical atherosclerosis by carotid intima media thickness or other techniques. You could look at cardiovascular risk scores. You could look at laboratory markers which reflect cardiovascular risk. And it's best to have more than one way of looking at it and also ensure a comparison with a control group, because unless you have a comparison with a control group, you cannot say whether there is increased cardiovascular risk in patients with rheumatoid arthritis or not, because you would just get a set of values. But unless you can compare it with somebody, you really cannot tell whether it's increased or decreased or it's similar. So the methodology section should answer the following questions: whether the study was approved by the ethics committee or appropriate regulatory authorities like clinical trial registration, whether patient consent was obtained, what were the sources of funding, how was sample size calculated. It may not be as important if it's a pilot study, but generally sample size is one of the most important considerations during planning your study. And it is important so that your study is adequately powered to answer the question that you have posed. Where the study was done, who were the study subjects, how they were recruited, what is being studied. It is important to clearly state primary and secondary objectives. And in general, a study shouldn't have too many objectives to answer. And your sample size calculation is generally based on the primary and at the best some key secondary objectives, rather than your study being powered to answer 20 different questions. You need to identify that these are the primary questions that my study wants to answer, and what is an adequate sample size for that. You should describe how the data was collected, when it was done, the study period, what was the study design. Was it an observational study? Was it an interventional study? Was it a cross-sectional study, case control study, or whatever? How the study was done, using what procedures. Let's say, for example, you are measuring levels of interleukin-6. This is a cytokine that is being widely touted in COVID-19. But unless you say that you measured interleukin-6 by which technique, commonly used technique is ELISA, but you might have used some other technique also. You cannot compare results from different studies unless you know what procedures they have used to make specific measurements. And finally, you must describe how the data was analyzed, what statistical methods were used for analysis of the data, so that somebody can understand what analysis strategy you have used and can try to replicate it. The idea for a methodology section is that somebody, after reading your methodology, should be able to replicate your study in toto, so as they can verify these findings in another population. That is the overall idea of writing a good method section. Ethics committee and research ethics committee overview is very important, and often it's something which is not very well understood by us. As per the Indian Council of Medical Research 2017 guidelines, all human studies or animal studies will require an ethics committee overview before they can start. And there are 3 types of review that can occur. There could be an exemption from review for studies which involve, say, minimal contact with participants, like questionnaire-based surveys, particularly of educational practices. There could be an expedited review for studies which involve minimum risk, say studies which are looking at just files, case records of patients without any direct contact with patients, or a full committee review for studies which involve contact with patients, which may involve some interventions if they're clinical trials and so on. So more or less, there are 2 issues that you need to address in original research articles, and these are 2 distinct issues. One is informed consent and the other is ethics committee overview. We often mix the 2 issues together. These are 2 different things. First is informed consent, whether you have informed the participants of your study that you are going to include them in this study and you're going to use this data for what purpose, and you have sought their permission or not. Informed consent is not general consent. Sometimes patients, when they are admitted to the hospital, they would give consent for admission, for treatment, for the use of the data. That is not informed consent. Informed consent is you have planned a study, you have asked a subject whether they can participate, they have agreed to participate, and they have given in writing that they have agreed to participate. That is called as informed consent. So if you have not sought informed consent, if you have only sought a general consent, then you should not write that informed consent has been obtained. For example, a retrospective chart review. You may not be able to contact the patients in question because that data was collected a long time back. In that case, you can always apply to the ethics committee to apply for a waiver of informed consent. You do not need informed consent provided the ethics committee certifies that you do not need it. In that case, even if the patient has given general consent, it is not suitable to write that informed consent was obtained because it was general consent, not informed consent. The second, as I mentioned, was Research Ethics Committee overview. The Research Ethics Committee review and approval is required for most types of studies, particularly in India. Research Ethics Committee may provide a waiver of written informed consent and rarely provide exemption from reviews for low-risk studies like surveys of educational practices. For participants from other parts of the world, local regulations regarding informed consent and research ethics committees may vary. And it is essential that they should be cited if deviations exist from the norms. If there is no requirement for a particular ethical review for a particular type of study in your country, you should cite those regulations. For clinical trials, pre-registration is mandatory and all trial results should be attempted to be published even if negative. For case reports, here also it's important to mention about written consent to publish. And there are other ethical concerns for other types of articles. We shall not look at them in this. In the manuscript, you must mention the full name of the approving ethics committee, the document submission number to the said ethics committee, and the date of approval. And in multicentric studies, all centers must have ethics approval at their individual sites. And if these are multinational, then the ethical standards may vary depending on local regulations. Let's say a questionnaire-based survey that is filled by the patient. In India, you may require informed consent from the patient, but in other countries, you may just require verbal consent from the patient. So you must mention the ethical aspects that are relevant in different centers as per their local requirements in your manuscript. And you must mention clearly about written informed consent and waiver of informed consent, as well as for case reports, you must have written consent to publish from the patient and guardian. Methods in a protocol is written in a future tense. Methods in a manuscript is written in the past tense. And basic statistical questions that must be answered are the size of the sample, the duration of follow-up, and the completeness of follow-up. The ICMJ guidelines are something that all of you must go through. These are freely available at the ICMJ website. And these mention that you should describe how the selection of participants was done, the study design, that you should aim to include representative populations, ensure correct use of the terms sex and gender. If the study was done using an exclusive population, you must justify why. And if you're determining race or ethnicity, you should mention why it was determined and how it was determined. You must specify primary and secondary objectives, identify methods, equipments, and procedures, including manufacturer name of, say, kits or machines that you have used in your study. Give references to established methods, including statistical methods. Provide references and brief descriptions for methods that have been used but are not well known, and describe new or substantially modified methods. Identify precisely all drugs and chemicals used, and identify appropriate scientific names and gene names. Statistics. Describe statistical methods with enough detail to allow somebody to judge whether it's appropriate and to verify the reported results. When possible, quantify findings and present them with appropriate measurement error and uncertainty, such as confidence intervals. Avoid relying solely on statistical hypothesis testing, such as p-value. It is important to understand that one must try to convey the effect size and precision estimates rather than just presenting the p-values, because p-values by themselves mean nothing other than the fact that how likely you are to reject a null hypothesis when it is actually true. Whereas the effect size will tell you how much is the difference between the two groups, and that is much more important. References for the design of study and statistical methods define statistical terms, abbreviations, and most symbols, specify which statistical software you used because results may vary slightly from software to software, and always distinguish pre-specified from exploratory analysis, including subgroup analysis. You must pre-specify some analysis and some other additional analysis may be done later on, but they should be clearly delineated. Normality assessment is essential, and parametric measures, that is means with standard deviations, should be used only if the sample size is adequate and data is normally distributed. Otherwise, non-parametric measures like medians with range or interquartile range should be used. What are common mistakes that scientists often make or authors often make? The study may not be designed to answer the question posed. For example, if the question is, do patients with rheumatoid arthritis have greater prevalence of metabolic syndrome? If you do not have a group of healthy controls, you cannot have a comparator. Including the results in the methods, or not describing something in the methods, but the results describe it. This is again something that irritates reviewers. For example, you may have stated in a study of cardiovascular risk in rheumatoid arthritis that you're going to look at serum cytokine levels in the methods. But you may not have mentioned it in the methods, but you mention it in the results, then that looks disparate and you should try to avoid that. So after writing your results, just go back to the methods and check whether everything that you have described has been described in the methods in the first place or not. Using inappropriate statistical tests, using parametric tests for small numbers, and if you have two groups for comparison, if you have less than 5 events in a group, then you should use the Fisher's exact instead of a chi-square. And when you're presenting scores, for example, the health assessment questionnaire, scores are discrete numerical values. They're not exactly continuous. Continuous means that between any two values, you should have a possibility to have an infinite number of values. For example, if it's a visual analog scale with 10 steps, 0 to 10, then between 1 and 2, obviously, you cannot have any values. So that's not continuous. They are ordinal, but discrete values. They are not continuous values. So ideally, they should be presented using medians with interquartile range. Identifying sources of bias in a study, be it selection, performance bias, exclusion bias, or detection bias. These also should be clearly delineated. So the peer reviewer essentially looks for the method section being concordant with the results and clear description of methods and inclusion of appropriate controls and clearly defined outcomes which are objectively validated. For qualitative studies, which is a different type of studies, established qualitative research methodology must be used. If you are using a technique from a published study, you should cite the same and provide a summary in the text. Materials and instruments should be identified and should not include in the methods information that belongs in other sections like introductions or results. So to conclude, the method section is the core of your manuscript in that it helps somebody to judge whether you have used an appropriate methodology to arrive at your conclusions. And that's the most important thing in the scientific process. It should be clear and concise. It should be able to replicate the study and judge the validity. It should be in about 3 to 5 paragraphs. The first paragraph describing ethics approval and participant selection, as well as funding sources. The second to fourth paragraph on variables and procedures for primary and secondary objectives. And the last paragraph on analytical methods that are used, the statistical methods used to analyze your results. So I would like to conclude and thank you. And I don't know if any questions can be asked. If any want to be asked, they're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Durga. We'll try to take questions at the end.